Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Freely. So you might be wondering why this shot is very overblown. That's on purpose. So I'm going to be demonstrating to you guys today the ND filter. So right now all my settings are all dialed in and it's still overblown like you see right now. So right now I have this ND filter and I'm going to screw it onto the front of the lens. So hopefully this goes on correctly. If I can even get onto the lens. Alright, there you go. And let's just adjust it slightly. And there you go. The shot still looks pretty ugly because of that very harsh shadow on my face and the sun is just like right there. But look, it doesn't look as overblown as when this video first started. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about ND filters, what they're used for, and what you can do with them. So I'm going to show you guys another example of what I mean. So obviously this shot is way too overexposed. I'm currently at ISO 100 and all the settings are dialed in correctly. And so I'm just going to apply this ND filter on just so that you guys can see the difference. And then we have it on and we're just going to adjust it right now. And you can see, there you go. That's a nicely lit image right there. So that's just a really huge contrast between the overblown shot and this ND filter shot. So the tool I'm using is called an ND filter, and ND stands for neutral density. And if you've watched other videos on the ND filter, this is probably not the first time you're hearing this, but an ND filter is basically like sunglasses for your camera. So they're used by both videographers and photographers, and they're used in several different ways, but basically all do the same thing. Basically filter out the light that's coming and hitting your camera lens and your sensor. In photography, ND filters are commonly associated with long exposure photography because it enables you to take long exposure photos in the daytime because it allows less light to hit the sensor. In videography, it helps you achieve that cinematic look because it allows you to shoot on days just like this with all your settings dialed in and still be able to like filter out that light and not allow your shots to be too overexposed. So like I just demonstrated, I had all my settings dialed in, but it was still very overexposed, and that's where the ND filter is going to be your sunglasses for your lens or your camera, is that it's going to filter out the light that is coming into your camera, and basically you have a really good exposed shot with your settings where it needs to be. So the ND filter I have is a variable ND filter. Most ND filters come in just like one certain stop of light, but mine is a variable, so it has like 8 different stops of light. I'm pretty sure that's wrong, but I'll check later. But basically it allows me to not have to carry so many ND filters with different stops of light. So the ND filter's job is to filter out light, and that is measured by the different stops. So on several ND filters you'll see that it has different stops of light. Some ND filters are usually just one stop or several stops of light, and this one is variable, so it has, you know, a very low setting to a very high setting where it filters out a lot of light. And so if you're considering buying an ND filter, I'd suggest go with a variable ND filter because it just allows you to be more flexible and not have to carry so many different filters around. The only downside to that is when you get to the highest ND filter, meaning it blocks out the most light, you might see some crosshairing on your image, and that doesn't really look good for your photos or your videos. So if you're considering buying an ND filter, you have to make sure you get the right size. So on your lens, there should be an indicator of what lens size that you have. The 15 to 45 millimeter kit lens that comes with the M50 is a 49 millimeter. So if you just check your lens, there should be a symbol on there that has a circle with a line through it, followed by a number in millimeters. You just check that on your lens and just make sure you buy the ND filter according to that number. So you might be thinking, what if you have all different kinds of lenses with all different kinds of sizes? And that's where the step rings come in. So I don't really have step rings because I just recently got this ND filter and I bought it only specifically for this lens that I have here. Basically those step rings will allow a bigger filter to be like stepped down onto your smaller lenses. So that's actually what's recommended, is that you buy the biggest filter that you can find and just buy a whole bunch of step rings. So instead of having a whole bunch of ND filters for all your different lenses, sizes. You have the biggest ND filter and just a bunch of step rings that can be stacked onto each other to fit all the different lens sizes. So I'm gonna go inside to finish this video because it's very hot here in Texas and the dog is jumping on me and making this a little bit more difficult than it should be. So let's go inside. So I took off the ND filter because obviously I don't need it on right now since we're inside, but there are a couple things to remember when you're using an ND filter. Now that there's a piece of glass in front of your lens, you have to be mindful of glares, but if you're one that really likes glares in your shots, by all means keep doing it. Always make sure that the filter is nice and clean because artifacts like dust and fingerprints will show up in your photos. This next one doesn't apply to regular ND filters, but for variable ND filters specifically, if you go too high of an ND, you might experience a cross pattern on your image. To remedy that, you just want to turn back the ND filter a couple notches and you should be fine. I want to note that this is not a comprehensive, in-depth video about how to use an ND filter. I only got this several weeks ago and I've been using it here and there, and I just want to document and share with you guys what I learned, and hopefully this can be helpful for you too. In the future, I'll probably make an update video about the ND filter and maybe some tips and tricks I learned along the way. If you guys are interested in getting this specific variable ND, I got it off of Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description below so you guys can check it out. You have to make sure you choose the right size for your lenses, or like I said, buy the biggest size and just buy a whole bunch of step rings. That's probably the best option if you have a whole bunch of different lenses. But yeah, the link will be in the description below if you guys are interested. If you guys found some value in this video, like this video and consider subscribing to the channel for more videos just like this. With all that said, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.